Listen, I need to tell you about what went down on NBA Today earlier because the conversation took such a wild turn that I had to actually pause my TV and just process what I was hearing for a second. I tuned in expecting the usual Lakers trade deadline speculation. You know, which role players they might target, whether they can get Herb Jones, all that standard stuff we've been hearing for weeks now. But then, the panel started discussing something that I honestly thought was completely off the table. Something that felt almost blasphemous to even say out loud. The possibility that if the Lakers don't make significant moves at this trade deadline, they might actually need to consider trading LeBron James. Yeah, you heard that right? Trading LeBron. And before you click away thinking this is just clickbait nonsense, let me walk you through how the NBA Today crew built this argument. Because by the end of the segment, even the most die-hard Lakers fans watching had to admit they were making some legitimate points about the impossible position this franchise has put itself in. So, the show opened with Mike Greenberg setting up the fundamental dilemma facing the Lakers, and he framed it in stark terms that I thought really cut through all the noise and speculation we've been hearing. He said the Lakers are at a crossroads where they have to pick a direction. Either they go all in right now with whatever assets they have to try to build a championship contender around LeBron and Luka while that window is still open, or they need to have a serious conversation with LeBron about whether this situation is actually fair to him given how few years he has left at an elite level. Hey, what's up everyone? 1 second before we dive in. That like button right there? Hit it now. Takes literally 1 second, but makes a massive difference in growing this channel and reaching more fans. Just smash that like real quick. Every like pushes this video further, so do me that favor right now. The way Greenberg laid it out, there's no middle ground anymore. The Lakers can't keep doing what they've been doing, which is kind of half-heartedly exploring trades while refusing to actually pull the trigger on anything significant, hoping that somehow everything just magically comes together. That's not a strategy. That's just delaying the inevitable reckoning that's coming, whether they want to face it or not. Then Brian Windhorst jumped in, and you could tell he'd been thinking about this a lot, because he immediately started breaking down all the trade scenarios the Lakers have been exploring, and explaining why none of them are actually realistic, given the assets LA has to work with. Windhorst went through the list. Herb Jones from New Orleans wants multiple first-round picks, and the Lakers don't even have multiple firsts to trade. Keon Ellis from Sacramento would cost at least 1 first-round pick, and is Keon Ellis really worth the Lakers' only tradable first when he's on an expiring deal and might leave in free agency anyway? Andrew Wiggins from Golden State, Trey Murphy from New Orleans. All these guys that have been rumored, none of them are actually available at prices the Lakers can afford to pay. The only path Windhorst could see that makes any sense is if Rob Pelinka can pull off that asset multiplication strategy we've heard about, where you take your 1 first-round pick and somehow turn it into 2 or 3 firsts by working with a team like Oklahoma City that has more picks than they know what to do with. And apparently, according to Windhorst's sources, the Lakers are legitimately trying to do this, but it takes 2 teams to make a trade happen. And if nobody's willing to play ball with you, then you're stuck. This is where Kendrick Perkins came in with what I thought was a really important reality check. He said that Lakers fans and media keep talking about Rob Pelinka like he's just sitting there refusing to make trades for no reason. But the reality is, we have no idea what's happening behind the scenes. We don't know what conversations are being had. We don't know what offers have been made and rejected. We don't know what the asking prices are from other teams. It's easy to sit here and say, just trade for this guy, or just make this deal happen. But if the other team doesn't want what you're offering, there's nothing you can do about it. Perkins was getting pretty animated about this, saying that everyone needs to stop blaming Pelinka for things that might be completely out of his control. If New Orleans wants 2 firsts for Herb Jones, and the Lakers only have 1 first to trade, then Herb Jones isn't happening no matter how badly Pelinka wants to make it work. If Sacramento is asking for too much for Keon Ellis, then Ellis isn't happening. This isn't NBA 2K where you just propose whatever trade you want and force it through. This is real life, where both teams have to agree and where leverage matters. But then, Richard Jefferson pivoted the conversation in a direction that honestly shocked me. And this is where the LeBron trade discussion really started picking up steam. Jefferson said something like, "Okay, so if we accept that the Lakers probably can't make the moves they need to make to become legitimate championship contenders this season, then what's the plan for LeBron?" And the way he said it, with genuine concern in his voice, you could tell this wasn't just hot-take artist stuff. This was a former player who understands the business and the human element, asking a real question about what's fair to a 40-year-old superstar who's still playing at an incredibly high level. Jefferson laid out LeBron's situation in stark terms. The man is still insanely talented, still putting up historic numbers night after night, still capable of being the best or second best player on a championship team if you put the right pieces around him. But he doesn't have 5 years left to wait for the Lakers to figure things out. He doesn't even have 3 years. He's got maybe 1 or 2 more seasons at this elite level, and every game that passes with a Lakers team that's stuck in mediocrity is a game closer to the end of his career without another championship. The question Jefferson posed was simple, but devastating. If the Lakers aren't going to do right by LeBron and give him a legitimate chance to compete for a title, shouldn't they at least have the conversation with him about whether he'd rather finish his career somewhere else that can actually contend? And if the answer is yes, shouldn't they trade him to a contender and get some value back, rather than watching him walk away for nothing or retire as a Laker without getting that 5th ring he clearly still wants? Chiney Ogwumake immediately pushed back on this, and the debate that followed was genuinely fascinating. Chiney's argument was that LeBron chose to be in LA, that his family wants to be in LA, that he's made it clear through his actions and his contract that he's committed to finishing his career as a Laker regardless of whether they win another championship or not. She was saying that trading LeBron against his wishes, or even suggesting it as an option, would be a betrayal of everything he's given to the franchise since he arrived. But Windhorst countered with what I thought was a really nuanced point. He said that LeBron's public stance about wanting to stay in LA might be genuine, but it also might be him being a professional and saying the right things while privately being frustrated that the organization isn't doing enough to put him in position to compete. Windhorst mentioned that he's talked to people close to LeBron's camp, and while nobody's saying LeBron is actively unhappy or demanding a trade, there's definitely frustration about the Lakers' inability or unwillingness to make the moves necessary to contend. The panel then started gaming out specific trade scenarios if the Lakers did decide to move LeBron. And this is where things got really interesting from a basketball perspective. Zach Lowe joined the conversation remotely, and he immediately brought up Golden State as the most logical destination. Lowe's argument was that the Warriors desperately need to make a big move to maximize what's left of Steph Curry's prime. LeBron would fit perfectly in their system as a secondary playmaker and connector piece, and the salaries could work if you built a package around some combination of Andrew Wiggins, Jonathan Kuminga, Moses Moody, and maybe Gary Payton II. Lowe broke down what a Warriors team with LeBron and Steph would look like, and, honestly, it was pretty tantalizing. You'd have 2 of the greatest offensive players in NBA history who've never played together, both still performing at high levels, in a system that's designed to maximize ball movement and off-ball action. LeBron would get the kind of spacing he needs to operate. Steph would have a secondary initiator who can handle playmaking responsibilities when he's being face-guarded. And defensively, you'd still have Draymond anchoring everything. For the Lakers, the return package would be Jonathan Kuminga, a young, athletic wing with all-star potential who's just been buried in Golden State's rotation and needs a fresh start. Plus Moses Moody, who's a solid 3-and-D wing and maybe a future first-round pick. It's not a haul that blows you away, but it's young talent that could grow alongside Luka and Austin Reeves, and it gives you the flexibility to actually tank properly if that's the direction you decide to go. But Perkins jumped back in here with a really important point about tanking that I think a lot of people overlook. He said that even if the Lakers wanted to tank right now to try to get a top pick in what's supposed to be a really good draft, they literally can't. They're 7 games above the 10th seed in the West. Even if they traded LeBron tomorrow and decided to lose every remaining game, they're probably not falling far enough to get a top 5 pick because Austin Reeves and Luka are good enough to win some games on their own. The only way tanking would work is if the Lakers basically shut down everyone. Sit Luka, sit Reeves, trade anyone who might accidentally win you games, and completely punt on the season. And even then, Perkins was saying, you're not guaranteed to get Cooper Flagg or any of the other elite prospects because the lottery is still a lottery, and you could fall in the draft order. So tanking doesn't really make sense as a strategy, which brings us back to the core dilemma. If you can't tank, and you can't build a contender around LeBron, what do you do? Jefferson's argument was that trading LeBron at least gives you some young assets and the flexibility to properly evaluate what you have with Luka and Reeves as your centerpiece going forward. The panel started discussing what a Lakers team built around just Luka and Reeves would look like, and there were some interesting theories floated. Windhorst suggested that maybe the Lakers don't actually know if that duo is good enough to build around, because they've never really had an extended look at them playing together without LeBron dominating the ball. Trading LeBron would give you half a season to evaluate whether Luka and Austin can be your foundation or whether you need to blow it up even further. Chiney made the counterpoint that you're essentially wasting a year of Luka's prime. He's 21 years old, entering the best years of his career, and you're going to use this season as an evaluation period instead of trying to win? That seems like organizational malpractice when you could instead be going all in on building around him and LeBron together while you still have that option. But Lowe pushed back by saying that maybe that one wasted year is actually valuable because it gives you clarity about your direction. If you trade LeBron and get back Kuminga and Moody, and those guys show they can be real contributors alongside Luka and Reeves, then suddenly you've got a young core to build around with cap flexibility and draft capital going forward. If it doesn't work, at least you know you need to make bigger changes, and you've got more assets to work with. The conversation then shifted to what LeBron himself would want in this situation. And this is where things got more speculative, but also more human. Jefferson talked about having played with guys at the end of their careers and how there's this tension between wanting to chase championships and wanting stability for your family. LeBron's kids are in school in LA. His business interests are based in LA. His wife wants to be in LA. Uprooting all of that to go chase a ring somewhere else isn't a decision you make lightly, even if basketball logic says it makes sense. Perkins jumped in with a different perspective, though. He said that LeBron's entire legacy at this point is about chasing greatness, about adding to the resume, about competing for championships. Every decision LeBron has made in his career, leaving Cleveland for Miami, going back to Cleveland, coming to LA, has ultimately been about putting himself in the best position to win. Why would that suddenly change now when he's in the home stretch of his career, and he's still playing well enough to be the second-best player on a title team? Windhorst made what I thought was the most insightful comment of the entire segment. He said that LeBron probably won't ask for a trade himself because that's not how he operates publicly, but that doesn't mean he wouldn't be open to it if the Lakers came to him and had an honest conversation about the situation. If Rob Pelinka sat down with LeBron and Rich Paul and said, "Look, we've tried everything. We can't make the moves we need to make. We're not going to be able to build a championship team around you this year or next year. Would you be open to us exploring a trade to a contender?" LeBron might actually say yes to that. The key difference Windhorst was emphasizing is between LeBron requesting a trade, which would be messy and create bad blood and hurt his image, versus the Lakers initiating a trade conversation that they frame as doing right by LeBron and giving him one last chance at a title. The optics matter a lot here, and if it's framed correctly, both sides could walk away with their reputations intact. The panel then went through other potential destinations beyond Golden State. Cleveland came up because of the LeBron history there, and because the Cavs are actually really good this season. The Knicks got mentioned because they have the depth to make a trade work, and they're clearly in win-now mode. Even Dallas got brought up as an interesting possibility, given their recent struggles and their need for another playmaker, alongside Luka Doncic and Kyrie. But each time they went through a destination, there were complications. Cleveland probably doesn't have the assets to trade for LeBron without gutting the core that's making them good. The Knicks would have to include Julius Randle or someone significant to make the salaries work. Dallas is capped out and can't really add anyone of LeBron's salary without destroying their depth. Golden State kept coming back up as the most realistic option because they have the contracts, the motivation, and the fit. Lowe made an interesting observation about how this entire conversation reveals the impossible position the Lakers have created for themselves through years of poor asset management. They don't have enough picks to trade for stars because they gave them all away in the Luka trade and other moves. They don't have young talent to trade because they either drafted poorly or traded their picks away. They don't have good contracts to use as salary filler because they've mismanaged their cap space. They've essentially backed themselves into a corner where they can't improve the roster in any significant way, which is why we're even having a conversation about trading LeBron. The segment was winding down when Greenberg posed the question directly to each panelist. If you're the Lakers, do you trade LeBron before the deadline? Or do you try to make smaller moves and keep him? The answers were all over the place, which I think reflects how genuinely difficult and unprecedented this situation is. Windhorst said he would trade LeBron if Golden State offered a package built around Kuminga, because you're getting a 22-year-old with star potential and you're doing right by LeBron by sending him to a contender. Perkins said, absolutely not. You cannot trade LeBron James while he's still playing at this level. The fan backlash would be catastrophic, and you'd be giving up on the only thing keeping you relevant right now. Jefferson was torn, but ultimately sided with keeping LeBron and trying to make whatever small moves you can to improve around the margin, even if those moves don't vault you into championship contention. Chiney said, trade him if that's what LeBron wants, but don't trade him if you're doing it unilaterally without his blessing, because that destroys the trust that future stars would have in your organization. What really stuck with me watching this entire NBA Today segment was how seriously everyone was treating this idea, despite how crazy it sounds on the surface. This wasn't just throwing out wild speculation for attention. These are people with real sources and real insight into how front offices think, and they were genuinely exploring the logic of trading LeBron as a real possibility if the Lakers can't figure out how to build a contender around him. The fundamental question the show kept coming back to is one of fairness and organizational responsibility. LeBron James is 40 years old and still playing at an all-NBA level. He's putting up 25 to 7 every night. He's been durable all season. He clearly still has the competitive fire to chase championships. Is it fair to him to spend what might be his final elite season on a Lakers team that's stuck in no man's land, too good to tank, but not good enough to compete for a title? And from the Lakers' perspective, if you know you can't build a championship team around LeBron in the time he has left, is it better to trade him and get some young assets that could help your rebuild? Or is it better to keep him and sell tickets and maintain relevance even if you're not actually competing for title? There's no easy answer, and I think that's what made the NBA Today discussion so compelling. Every side has legitimate points. Every option has serious downsides. This is a genuine organizational dilemma without a clear, correct solution. But here's what I took away from watching the entire segment. The Lakers need to make a decision soon. The trade deadline is February 6th, which is less than 3 weeks away. If they're going to go all in and try to build a contender around LeBron and Luka, they need to start making aggressive moves right now. If they're going to trade LeBron, they need to have those conversations now, so there's time to work out a deal. What they can't do is just drift into the deadline without making any significant moves and then act surprised when LeBron is frustrated or when they lose in the first round of the playoff. The time for half measures and hoping things magically improve is over. The Lakers either need to go for it right now with everything they have, or they need to have an honest conversation with LeBron about whether trading him to a contender is the right move for everyone involved. After watching NBA Today break it all down, I honestly don't know which path I'd choose if I were running the Lakers. Both options are terrifying in different ways. But one thing is absolutely certain: doing nothing is no longer an option. The Lakers have to pick a direction, and they have to do it now. This is the crossroads. Lakers either go for it or trade LeBron to a contender. There's no middle ground left.